Hello everybody and welcome back. In this new video series, we're going to cover the Unity scripting fundamentals that's going to get you started programming for your games. If you haven't had a chance to check out the previous series, the Unity Fundamental course, I'll post a link in the top for you to cover that information that goes over project setup, the Unity editor, scene building essentials, that gets you to this step where you're ready to start learning the C# programming language. And so in this quick little example, I put together a basic plane and a capsule as the player. I can move the player with the keyboard and I can jump with the keyboard. And all of this is done through a behavior script that's been attached to the actual object in order for us to program and be able to move our game objects in our scene. So with the Unity game engine, they use the C# programming language from Microsoft in order for us to create our scripting files to add that behavior that we just saw with our capsule controller. And here I created a simple character controller that's going to have some move speed and some jump speed. It's interacting with that object's rigid body, which we'll cover on a later topic. And this script allows me to move that player in our scene. Now that we're ready to create our scripting files as behaviors, they need to be added to a specific object. And we also need to have a place to keep these files located. Here on a brand new project, I have a asset folder with my scenes folder. And just like the scenes folder, if I had a scripting file, this is what's represented by this white image with the green hashtag, I want to be able to keep these files in a specific location. So the first thing you always want to do is right click, go to create, and go ahead and create a new folder that's labeled scripts. That way we can contain all these different scripts that we can go back to and locate them as we need them. So for instance, if you were to create a script file like this, I would then move this into my scripts folder like so. But for this one here, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one here. That way we can start from a brand new script file. So I'm going to go ahead and delete and start over. The first thing you want to do is you want to double click to go into that script folder itself. And then we can right click on our mouse. We can go up to create and we can go all the way to the top to C# script. Now when it comes time to name your scripting files, right now I've not touched the keyboard and Unity's asking me to actually put in a name on this file. So if for some reason you accidentally hit the enter key or some other key and it saves the name of that script file, you can select that script file, and in the inspector, just like the previous lessons when we selected a different game object, we've got different properties in our inspector. And this one here, this script file is showing me, hey, this is a new behavior script, and here's a copy of what was created. Now, with this being the first one, a new behavior script could be okay just for testing purposes, but ultimately you want to make sure that you're naming your file the same name as kind of what the behavior on that file is going to do for you in that game. Maybe it's a collectible, maybe it's to move an object in a specific direction, or maybe it's going to check for your player's health. You want to name your script files based on what they're going to accomplish for you in your game. So that way it's easy to identify which is which. The second thing to look at is that you want to make sure that the name of the file has the same name as the class. So for instance, I made this file here, but the name is wrong. So if I was to right click and I go up to rename, and let's just say player as an example, when I renamed this file to player, it's renamed the file but once Unity compiles it again, you notice that the class has not been changed. It still has the new behavior script. And you want these two to match so that way that Unity knows that this file belongs to this class. Now, one thing to note, I'm currently on Unity on a Mac, whereas if I was to say select my main camera and I was going to go ahead and apply this to the object there, it will actually allow me to add this script as a behavior to that object. That's not the same case if you're on a Windows. So if you are developing on a Windows machine, that's not going to allow you to do that. And so I'm going to pause, take a look at this next clip that shows you that you cannot do that. And so after doing some basic testing, it turns out that it could be just the newer version of Unity. I'm on 2022.3.7F1. If I go in my scripts folder, I'm sorry about that, go to create, I go to C# script. I forget to name this C# script. It's labeled as new behavior script once Unity finishes compiling. If I was to go rename this one as, say, player, and then I try to select my main camera as the object that I want to put this on, and I grab this and drop this over here, it allows me to add this script file as a behavior here in the same version, the newer version of the Unity game engine. Now, I'm not sure why that's happening. If you are on an older version, as in say 2021, so take a look at this. And so here I am on 2021.3.30F1. Same setup. I'm going to make a C# script. I'm going to forget to rename it. And then when I go to right click and rename, say player, if I wait for Unity to compile, select my main camera, I'm going to grab this player script. I'm going to drag and drop it as a component. You're going to get this error, can't add script. So this is what I was talking about, that if you're trying to add a script file as a behavior component and it's not allowing you to do that, more than likely the name of the file is not the same name as the class name. And that's what's going on here. And that's what I was trying to indicate on the Mac version, but it could be the version of the software that's causing that to be able to have happen. So if you get this error, it says where it cannot add the script component player because the script class cannot be found. That's more than likely your error. I would double check and verify that when you select the file that the class name does in fact match the file name. Then you can add this to the object. So if I was to delete this, let Unity compile. I'm going to make a brand new one. I'll name it correctly this time. So player, let Unity compile. Select my main camera again, drag and drop, and now I'm able to add that script file as a behavior component in our main camera game object. From the very beginning, go ahead and make sure that you're putting a good name on that. Also, the name should start with a capital letter, and if you have more than one word in that name, we're going to use what they call a Pascal case naming convention. So for an example, I go to create a C# script. And again, let's say this is the player controller. So I would do a capital P for player, no spaces, then a capital C for controller. And that way the class name has the name player controller. So does the script file. And up here, you notice there's a space there. That's just the way that Unity is printing out the name of the file, but it does not have a space in the name. And so we want those two to match. And once we have those two to match, if I had a, say, capsule as my player, and this was our player object, I can then take this script file and drag and drop it onto my player so that I can move my player. If that's what the file is going to do, it's going to move the player around the world. Now this player has this script file attached to there. And again, that's not the same as on the Windows version, so be mindful of that. And that's the very basics for this first lesson. Make sure that we're getting our script files created correctly, we're getting them attached to the objects correctly, and that we have the same naming convention using the Pascal case. Thanks for watching, guys.